Hello, this is Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Charlie State.
It's 8:30. We'll get latest official figures on job vacancies this morning, but we do already know that certain sectors are really struggling to recruit staff. Ben is on a new housing development in West Yorkshire to tell us more about that and do some building as well, I think. Morning.
Good morning to you. Yeah, we've already had those figures out at 7 o'clock this morning, and what they tell us is that the unemployment rate has fallen very slightly as the economy recovers from the pandemic, but it tells us that there were more than 1 million vacancies, job vacancies, in the month of July. That's a record high. Let me explain a little bit about why some of those workers maybe perhaps are not able to be on sites like this, and there's a shortage because, well, EU and the Brexit withdrawal agreement meant that there are new rules for EU workers that would be coming to the UK. They might need to get visas, for example, so that makes it a bit harder. That's led to a shortage. There's also been a shortage already of things like HGV drivers, and we know that was caused shortage of things like food on supermarket shelves. So there were already problems before the pandemic. But as the economy opens up again after the pandemic, it's meant there's been a bit of a bottleneck, that lots of industries looking for lots of workers as they get back up and running, and that's led to a shortage. So huge problems for business. And those latest official figures that we've had this morning do give us a sense of where some of those vacancies may be and why there is a shortage in things like construction. But there are also big concerns about how long this will last and whether the economy will start to kind of calm down and things get back to a bit more normality as the economy recovers. Well, let me introduce you to Kate, who runs a recruitment firm. Kate, nice to see you.
Good morning.
Look, talk to me about why there are these problems, because in some industries, real shortages of workers, real shortages of skills, and that could cause problems for not only things like construction, but in hotels and hospitality, real problems across the board.
Absolutely. I think if anybody's on holiday at the minute, you see lots of people not being able to go to capacity in hospitality because of a lack of staff. And there's lots of different reasons why that's happening. You know, whether it's EU workers not being able to come back, it's more complicated. Furlough's been an amazing scheme and we really needed it, but actually now it is hampering that job market. And security, people are thinking, well, what's going to happen with the pandemic? Is it over? Are we going to have another lockdown? People don't want to move in an uncertain market, so we've got a real kind of almost a candidate market that's not happening.
And the fact that people aren't moving is a real problem, isn't it? Because
Absolutely.
They're sticking in the jobs that they're doing, and there's no movement that means people can progress, get promoted, take a new job, and then the whole jobs market grinds to a halt.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And there is also a skills shortage in lots of different sectors. People have moved around sectors and moved out of sectors and got to other jobs, and now those sectors are coming back. We're then finding that we're really struggling to recruit people in those sectors. And I think employers have to do something different to attract people. You need to look at your employer brand. People are questioning and want to do something different. They've had so much time to think. I mean, the pandemic's affected us all in different ways.
Yeah. And do you think people have just sort of spent that last 18 months thinking, you know what, I'm not in the job that I want to be doing, I'm going to retrain, I'm going to do something else, and that means that maybe some industries that relied on maybe relatively cheap, relatively unskilled labour suddenly find that they don't have that appeal?
Yeah, and I think we are seeing wages increase as well, and that's part of it. That work-life balance, people are saying, I want to do something different, I don't want to work till late, I don't want to do a shift. And actually they've experienced that you can move from sector. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, people were thinking, well, I've only experienced tourism, or I've only done hospitality, and now I realise that actually if you're great at what you do and you've got great communication skills, you're great at service, you can do lots of different jobs, and that's really changed the whole dynamic of the job market as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how this shakes out, isn't it? Kate, for now, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you. Thanks so much. So look, a sense there of sort of what's happening in the jobs market and how difficult it is in some sectors for employers to be able to recruit the right people. And it's also about training. We're talking to the guy who runs this building site here in Huddersfield, and he said actually his problem is not necessarily a lack of skills, but it's an ageing workforce. People that he's worked with for decades, suddenly getting a little bit older, thinking about retiring, and there's not the new skills that are coming through the system. Maybe it's part of the education problem, maybe it's that lack of apprenticeship or training opportunities for young people, or maybe it's about the attractiveness of certain careers that people maybe want to do other things rather than some of the perhaps more traditional industries. But nonetheless, they've not got a shortage here on the site, but across the construction industry it's a real problem. But I'm going to leave you with that glorious view this morning that we have from here in Huddersfield, looking right down the valley. It's a little windy, it's a little wild, but it is glorious as this train comes over the viaduct.
Yeah, it's really lovely view. And thank you very much, Ben. Thank you.
The UK economy is continuing to bounce back from lockdown, with job vacancies hitting a record high of almost 1 million and wages ticking up too. Unemployment also fell in the 3 months to June. Our economics correspondent Andy Verity has this.
At this construction site in Huddersfield, 18 houses are being built. But so far, only 4 have been completed. The amount of work getting done in the construction industry has been slowing down across the country, not because of COVID, but because of 2 shortages: raw materials and workers. In this sector alone, there are now 38,000 vacancies being advertised.
It's facing a shortage of young people coming into the industry, without a shadow of a doubt. We need more young people of all trades, so that's bricklayers, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, and there's an acute shortage.
This site's kept on workers into their 60s, and across the industry, they're being forced to pay more, with the average wage up by 12% over the past year. And it's not just this industry. Across the economy, vacancies are a fifth higher than they were before coronavirus, and employers can't find the staff they need.
I think it's a perfect storm of lots of things. So, we've had a pandemic, people have not been moving jobs, so people have been kind of sticking where they are. So you've got a lack of candidate movement. You've got a lot of EU workers that went home during the pandemic, and actually it's really difficult to get back if you want to. And the skill shortages, you're going back to a lack of apprenticeships from a long time ago that haven't been coming through.
There is still about 1.9 million more people workless than there were before the pandemic, with more than 607,000 fully furloughed, nearly 850,000 partially furloughed, 201,000 fewer on employers' payrolls, and nearly 300,000 fewer in self-employed work. Slowest to recover from the pandemic's economic symptoms is London, where there are still far fewer jobs to be done serving coffee and lunch to workers in the city, for example, many of whom are still working from home. But in the wider economy, the big issue in the jobs market is now not so much people who can't find work as employers who can't get the staff. In health and social care, for example, a record 161,000 roles are going unfilled. That's likely to put upward pressure on inflation in the form not just of rising prices, but of lengthening queues and waiting times. Andy Verity, BBC News.